On today's show, Laura Heywood interviews
the extraordinary composer and my friend, Mr. Joe Iconis. Welcome to Laura Heywood Interviews. I'm Laura Heywood. Listen, I'm going to assume that you already know a lot about Joe Iconis. I'm going to assume that you know he saw Little Shop of Horrors on stage when he was 6 years old. I'm going to assume you know he has a band of collaborators he calls The Family. I'm going to assume you've seen or at least heard his musical Be More Chill, which finishes a triumphant Broadway run on August 11th. You might know his other works, from off-Broadway's currently running Broadway Bounty Hunter to his early show The Black Suits to the upcoming Love and Hate Nation, which will be running later this year at Two River Theater in Red Bank, New Jersey. I'm assuming you know that Two River is the venue that commissioned and launched Be More Chill, the musical, which also made the ultimately game-changing decision to record an original cast album. That album and the songs from it, especially Michael in the Bathroom, sung heartbreakingly by George Salazar, spurred an unforeseen and unprecedented fan reaction, ultimately bringing the show to Broadway in a way Broadway had never seen before. Again, I'm going to assume that you know all of this already. If you don't, you can actually find a long-form interview I did with Joe and his collaborators in the Laura Heywood Interviews archives. It's episode 23. I sat down at the Guggenheim Museum with book writer Joe Trace, director Stephen Brackett, and choreographer Chase Brock, as well as my guest today, Joe Iconis. So go back and listen to that one if you're a Joe Iconis newbie. Mr. Iconis has done a lot of interviews. I want today to be different. Rather than go over the questions he's answered 100 times before, I want to give Joe a chance to sit back and reflect on his work, past, current, and present, and future, and relax with a friend in a space where he can speak extemporaneously on how he's feeling, what he's excited about, topics he might not ever have gotten to address before because of time or other limitations in other venues. So in case it isn't already clear, let me state firmly and unequivocally, I adore this man. I connect deeply with his work. I hugely admire his ethos. I'm wildly inspired by the dedication he shares with his tribe of collaborators, and I am hyperbolically moved and honored to consider him my friend. Please join me in welcoming to Laura Heywood Interviews, the great Joe Iconis.
Yay. Hey. That was the best intro / book report I've ever heard.
It was kind of a book report.
Yeah.
I am, there's one thing about me, it's that I am very into doing my research.
Respect.
And with you, it's easy because I've just followed your career for so long that some of this didn't even feel like I needed to study. Of course, I still studied. If only I could have been so dedicated in school.
No, I know. I mean, likewise. The amount of time that I spend researching, using one random word in a script is, I feel like, just so beyond any amount of time I actually spent, reading the books I was supposed to in school.
I used to joke, I'm sort of embarrassed by it now, but I used to joke that I majored in college in getting good grades without doing any of the work and without actually learning anything, as if learning anything was something to, that only losers would do.
Right, of course, yeah.
And I would instead rebel by going and playing around in the college radio station and doing theater. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'll show you, academics,
Way to go, yeah. I'm not retaining any of this information.
I'm not going to learn anything. And what I didn't realize is that me rebelling and all that play was actually preparing me for a career that I was super experienced in by the time I finished school.
See?
So
life.
And I think maybe you were doing the same thing with music.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I definitely, from the time I was 6 years old to the time I was am 37 years old right now, I've exclusively majored in musical theater and related art forms.
Have you ever written for theater that wasn't musical?
I wrote. The first time I ever actually wrote script of any kind was when I was a senior in undergrad, and I was someone who always sort of fantasized about writing, book or screenplays or something, but I just never did it, and so my senior year of undergrad, I took this playwriting course, and it was just, I was like, I just want to, I don't want to leave my time in undergrad at NYU and not take some kind of writing course, and that was the first time I ever found myself writing scenes, mm-hmm. and I felt really comfortable doing it, and my professor, Ed Napier was his name, he was like, "Oh, you're actually pretty good at this," and it was definitely like a surprise. You know, the rest of my class were people who had sort of been on a path of whether screenwriting or playwriting or whatever, and I sort of came in as like the music guy, and I was clearly doing something that was like striking a chord in a certain way, and so that was the first time that I was like, oh, maybe I actually can do this thing that I've always sort of fantasized about, even though I had been sort of writing music for a while, and then had started writing lyrics for for a bit in school. That was the first time I wrote a script, and so then when I found myself at the end of my senior year, I was very much like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life, and I was no closer, by the end of undergrad, to a life in the American musical theater than I was when I got there. You
might not think you were, but you were.
I was. I mean, in retrospect, I was. I was, as far as my abilities and as far as what I knew how to do, but as far as like connections or anything, I just had none. And so I was like, I should go to grad school. That'll be a great way to, delay my life. In addition to, learning and making connections and all that. And so I applied to the NYU Graduate Musical Theater Writing Program. And then I applied to a few playwriting programs. And so I had to essentially write a play in order to apply to these programs and kind of fake having, been writing plays for years and years and years, which is what I did. I like made up, like fake plays that I pretended that I had, been writing all throughout my college years.
So you just like binge wrote 3 or 4 plays and were like, I wrote one a year for the last 4 years.
No, because I might be incorrect at this, but at the time, I feel like you just really had to, submit one full length, and then you can kind of like talk about other stuff. And so I did that. So
that would
I just
never fly now with you.
No, I know. So I wrote a play, and the name of the play was "The Sad Man Gets Over It." How cute is that?
It's so cute.
Yeah, and
it's
that,
almost as good as is it Moms Are Good When You're Sick?
Mothers are special when you're sad.
Shoot.
Yeah,
I got
you were
it so
close.
wrong, but at least you knew what I was talking about.
I knew what you were talking
that was a
about.
Joe Iconis deep cut.
Yes.
Can you just briefly explain?
Yeah, for sure. Mothers Are Special When You're Sad is the first song that I ever wrote. I wrote it when I was 6 or maybe 7, and the entire song, I'll sing it for you now, is mothers are special when you're sad. 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 Haha, that's it. Goodbye, everybody. So that was the whole entire song.
So your first musical number and your first play were both about being sad and something that can help.
Yes. Shocker.
Okay, so take me back to, say it again, the boy who was sad or the
You're really butchering my blunt titles, Laura.
Sad man and got over it.
The sad man gets over it.
The sad man gets over it.
Yeah. It was not a good play, but I did get into the new school with it.
I mean, it must have been okay.
It was okay.
Or shown potential.
And I was waitlisted at Juilliard, which was very hilarious to me.
What makes that hilarious?
Because it was like it should not have been. It should have been a very aggressive non-acceptance to Juilliard.
I'm
but I was
sure
waitlisted.
their admissions office knows what they're doing, though. Like,
I guess, yeah.
I mean, when you look at the people who've come out of there,
yeah,
you're just as on Broadway as they are.
I guess so. This is truth.
Do you feel like there's a part of you that isn't as on Broadway as like the fancy Juilliard graduates?
I mean, kind of. Yeah. 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 I think that I am I'm not downplaying, my quote unquote success or any of that. It's just it's hard for me to like think of myself in the same way that people think of other sort of major writers right now. I mean, I like my stuff, I like what I'm doing, but I don't feel fully embraced by the theatrical community in the way that insert name here is or are, and so because of that, I always feel a little bit like I'm on the outside of all of it.
Is it like they just don't get it yet, or do you have some kind of imposter syndrome, do you think? We can just do therapy while you're here.
Yeah. I think that I don't know. It's not imposter syndrome at all. I really love the work that I do, and I think it's worthy. And I think because, because I'm so sort of aware of what came before me, because I'm such a theater fan, and specifically a musical theater fan, and sort of know, I know my history in that way. I think I have a good idea of how my work and how my my whole thing kind of fits into the larger landscape of American musical theater, and I believe that it has a place. I think that it's 100% as worthy as any number of things, and so I think that it belongs there. So yeah, I guess it's that I feel like the folks that I've been working with have not quite been, embraced in the way that everybody wants to be embraced.
Sure. Yeah, it's like you are the same age as other composers who have been sort of embraced by the establishment, but it also feels like you're a new generation.
Yeah.
And that 20, 30 years from now, or maybe even 5 years from now, you will have just been the pioneer that people didn't know quite what to make of, in the same way they didn't know what to make of other revolutionary theater artists when they first got to Broadway. Like, what is this?
Right.
But once a bunch of other people start to look like, or their model looks more like what the Be More Chill model was, or their sounds a little bit more like then you'll be like the godfather of a new type of Broadway storyline.
Right. I guess, yeah. And the thing that, and I understand all of that. The thing that continues to trip me up about my own work and my own sort of place in the business is that I don't think of my work as all that cutting edge. I don't think of what I'm doing as all that, tricky to like wrap your head around. I understand when something like, like Hair bursts on the scene and everyone is like, oh my God, what is this? But I just don't think what I'm doing is revolutionary in that way. Or I think that the writing itself is not revolutionary. I think the writing itself is like super traditional because that's what I'm trying to do. And for me, it's like I'm trying to maybe talk about things that couldn't have been, talked about 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And I'm trying to sort of bring, new sounds and new references and all of that to the writing. But the writing itself, when I look at it, I just think this is like classic musical theater writing. And when I look at it, it's like, I think it's pretty solid, classic musical theater writing.
I totally agree. I don't think it's actually the content, although it is super current, and it's taking risks that no shows have done before. Like something like just as simple as putting a theremin in the orchestrations in Be More Chill is like, no one's ever done that before.
Right.
But what I see as truly revolutionary is that rather than courting big producers to finance your work, you prioritized collaboration with the people that make you the happiest. And it seems to me that might have at some point seemed like an either or. That somebody could have come along and said, I will give you $50 million to make this musical if you put insert Hollywood A-list name in it. And that I don't know if that happened or how you would have reacted if that did happen.
Right.
But I like to imagine that you would have said, you know what? It might never make it to Broadway, but nobody but George Salazar can play Michael Mel on Broadway.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's, all of that stuff is... Like, listen, everyone knows it is of course easier to get things off the ground if you stuff them full of famous people. It makes sense. Like, of course it is. And at a time when it's really hard, obviously, to bring new musicals that aren't based on previously existing source material and all that, to New York and commercial productions. Of course, you want to try to protect yourself however you can and try to, sort of like stuff the package with as many things as people would be excited to spend money on. And so, of course, that's a thing. And for me, there's I've never been a person who's like, I would never work with a Hollywood star. Like it's not that. It's just that when I'm working on these shows, because everything I've worked on, thus far, and probably this will remain, is something, whether it's an adaptation or an original, that I care deeply about, and something that I truly believe in. I have not yet taken a job because it's like a quote unquote money job, or I've not yet taken a job because I felt like, oh, I'll do this and it will advance my career. Every show I'm working on, every piece of art I'm doing is something that I really believe in and that I think is really, really good. And so for me, I can't compromise that, and I can't, and I can't sort of turn my back on what I believe to be the things that will best serve that piece of art. And and with anything, there's always tough decisions, especially when it comes to casting and personnel and all of that stuff. And on every show that I've done, I've had to make incredibly hard decisions. And so it's even hard for me to sort of like, take the compliment when people are like, oh, you're so loyal. And
you have a lot of integrity.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. I think so. But even with that, it's not like an A+ report card. It's like an A-. I feel like. And so there's always going to be, people who can't, come with for whatever reason. And that kills me. I hate that. But I just think it's important. And that's the kind of stuff I want to make, and it's really important to me. It's really important that Be More Chill, got to the stage with it, starring George Salazar and starring Stephanie Hsu, and which is not to say that there are not so many incredibly talented, YouTube stars and movie stars and young people on Netflix shows who could have, been in those roles, and maybe they could have been in those roles and the show would have run for 2 years or whatever. But I just have to believe in the art, and I have to believe in the artists who have developed these things that I'm doing. And yeah,
I mean, I guess the goal is, or the hope is, that with this kind of exposure of being on Broadway, that those people will become the A-list Hollywood movie stars, and then they'll continue to work with you.
Correct.
Or for example, I don't know what your relationship was with Gaten Matarazzo before he came and performed, but he performed at what's called the post-show hang, which I'm going to also assume people are familiar with, which is the post-show. You did, was it 6 or 7 or 8 around there? Members of Joe Iconis and family came and performed songs of yours, either from Be More Chill or from other projects. And one of the young stars of Stranger Things, who also has a Broadway history as Gavroche and Les Mis, came and performed.
Theater kid.
And I was invited by the production to come and actually do the thing you're never allowed to do in a Broadway theater, which is film. And it has almost 100,000 views on YouTube. Because he, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler about the new season of Stranger Things. He actually sings in the new season of Stranger Things. And so I think a lot of people started Googling his name and singing to see if he could actually sing. And what they found was my video of him singing More Than Survive from Be More Chill. And, I'd love to hear the story of how you met him, how he became considered part of the family enough to be one of these handful of performers that got to come and do that, and whether you have him in mind for any of your future projects now that he is like a bona fide star.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he, it's pretty simple. Gaten was just a fan of the show, and Jen Tepper, our producer and my great friend, she knew Gaten from years ago because he was in Godspell cast of 2030, whatever that was, when the Godspell revival happened.
The one that George was in?
Yeah, the one that George was in.
He was in it?
It's no, he wasn't in it. Allow me to explain.
Sorry,
it's a whole story. Just calm down, Laura. So it was this thing where they did this sort of contest where they auditioned all of these young people to each play one of the Godspell roles. And so they did like a performance of Godspell that included all of these like little kids sort of mirroring all of the actors. So there was like a little George Salazar, a little Nick Blameyer, and Gaten was little Jesus. He was literally Jesus.
Gosh.
And so Tepper has known him, for probably most of his life. And so I've been aware of him.
That seems like it was last year to me.
No, of course.
And it was his whole life.
Well, I mean, it was like 4 years, but the kid's little. He was like living in another person 14 years ago. And so I was aware of his, and then obviously obsessed with Stranger Things. And he came to the opening of the show. He just likes the show. He's like a real theater kid. He knows what's up. And and so I just asked him if he wanted to come and sing a song. He was like, yeah, of course. It was very easy, and he's great. And yeah, I would love to work with him. I mean, he's just like so my type of actor. As I think most people who know my work know, I really respond to actors who have inherent personality, who have an inherent sort of strangeness to them, while also having an inherent like warmth and charisma, and like that kid just has all of that. And so yeah, he's like the future leading man of my dreams, Gaten Matarazzo.
That's awesome, and I hope that comes to be. It seems like you guys are both into it. I agree that he's the kind of actor that I gravitate towards too.
Yeah.
And, I think that the first thing a lot of people noticed when they saw him on Stranger Things was like something was going on with his mouth, with his teeth.
Yeah.
And I don't actually know what the condition is called, but I know that it is some sort of genetic thing. And instead of the creators of Stranger Things going like, we can't have that, or writing a character specifically like that, they were willing to see an actor who had this very visual difference about him, and then write it into the character for him. And I feel like that's such a Joe Iconis move, is to be like, to take the person who would normally be brushed aside because of something they couldn't help, that doesn't actually affect their talent or their personality, and put them in the spotlight and let them shine.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's so sort of up my alley, and everything I've always tried to do. Yeah, in my writing and all of my shows, I mean, certainly this is the case with Be More Chill, but with everything really, I can't help but wrap the writing around the actor who's performing it, which just comes from, a real love of actors. Like I'm obsessed with them, and when I'm writing, I just want to write material for them to perform. It's like I hate going to see a musical or show or anything, a movie, whatever, and I see a great actor who I feel like has been wasted. It drives me crazy, and I just feel like, why did I have to watch this amazingly talented person, like sing 3 lines and like swoon over a guy or a girl or whatever, instead of actually having something to do. And so I'm always trying to give these actors something to do, and then as soon as I get in the room with them, all I want to do is like tailor it so it makes sense coming out of their mouths, out of their bodies, and I always feel like whenever different people perform my stuff, and this is more the case with sort of standalone songs, I always, whenever I interact with people who are sort of learning my stuff, I always say to them, like, change it up, like change up the rhythms, change up, even a melody or something. If there's some difference you hear, I want that, because I think that songs should sound different and roles should feel different depending on who's performing them, which is sometimes tricky in theater, because at a certain point, if like Elphaba isn't standing on the cherry picker and defying gravity, there's like a huge problem there, and so you have to fit yourself into something that exists.
That's the direction, and people they call it creating a role for a reason, right?
Right.
Like I've gotten to see understudies in most of the roles at Be More Chill, because you guys have been so generous with continuing to invite me back. I will say that there are plenty of shows that I might not go back to see 12 or 13 times, and Be More Chill was not one of those. Like, you didn't run nearly long enough for me to get sick of it.
Yeah, thanks.
And I love seeing the way that actors are portraying the characters, because to see Morgan Green play, I got to see her play Jenna Roland, and I got to see her play Christine.
Yeah.
And in both cases, I could kind of tell what was part of the way that the role was directed, and what was part of the choices that the actor was making. And this is why I encourage everyone to jump at the chance to see understudies.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's really the only way to see what the direction truly was.
Yeah.
And I also got to see Troy play Michael Mell. And, I just a couple minutes ago said nobody except George Salazar could play Michael Mell on Broadway, but I saw Troy do it, and he's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's not actually true that nobody else could do it. What I think it's about is like the creation of it and the DNA that's in it.
Yeah.
And I first saw George Salazar sing that song like 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
And immediately knew it was something special.
Yeah.
And it was the way that he it was almost like you could see it coming out of his pores while it came out of his mouth.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the thing too with, I'm me, so I only know the way that I work. But with something like Michael in the Bathroom, that song, I always liked that song. I knew that was a good song when I wrote it. But George singing it for the first time and working on the song with George really changed the bones of the song, or if the bones of the song were what they were, then once George got a hold of it, it sort of it took those bones and put them into like a shiny new body or something.
It was like breathing life into Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Or Frankenstein's monster, I guess.
Yeah, Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
Yes. The Michael in the Bathroom was just Frankenstein's monster lying limp on a table, and then George came and like summoned up the lightning and all of like those mechanisms that beep and bloop and brought him to life.
Beep beep boop bloop. Boop. What is the line in the line that's just beeps and bloops, and is it The Pitiful Children?
Yeah, beep beep boop boop.
Yeah, I love that as a lyric.
It's I get a lot of flack for lyrics like that. They're really easy lyrics to look at and be like, this guy's terrible. He's just making up sounds. But I adore nonsense syllables in lyric. I just do. I think that they're really worthwhile. I think that they're really exciting, and I can't help it. I'll never stop using them.
Do they come easily to you, or do you like stress out about them as much as you would about a really complex rhyme?
Oh, stress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're just putting them in there as placeholders and then never taking them out.
No, I don't. I just don't do that. Like when I write lyrics, I obsess over all of them, over the tiniest little words, and a lot of times I'm obsessing over things because I want them to sound messy. I'm obsessing over things because if the moment calls for it, I want the lyric to feel like easier, scrappier. I sort of I think that that content dictates form, and I think that the depending on the the vibe of the show and the characters and whatever, the lyrics should just kind of feel different. And so that really changes the way that I write, which is just to say that a lyric like not na 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 in More Than Survive, I think about that just as much as I think about the lyrics of Michael in the Bathroom or the lyrics of I Love Play Rehearsal. It's just as important to me, and just as much thought and effort goes into it, and I can expound upon why it's this syllable and not that syllable and all of that. But I love it, and it's like people always talk about in musicals that what the reason that people sing in musicals is because the emotion is too great that they can't do anything but burst into song, and I think that that's true sometimes, but I also think that in musical theater, people can use music and sung lyric to work through things. It's like when they actually don't know what their emotions are, and people can use song to actually figure some stuff out, and sometimes it doesn't quite make sense, which is why for me it makes a lot of sort of emotional sense to sometimes have a character slip into kind of nonsense words, to slip into just syllables, because we're not always able to easily articulate our feelings. And sometimes I think and I think in life we I do I grunt and I make noises,
Just
and
say what's on your mind.
Exactly. But that's so it. I think that people actually do that. We do that all the time, day to day. We we go like, hey, or huh, or we kick a wall, and
or like
exactly. It's a thing that people actually do, and so it feels really correct to me to sort of musicalize that in the same way that it feels correct to me to musicalize words like love and sky and dream and memory. It's the same thing.
There are two lyrical moments that I think are my favorite Joe iconicisms in Be More Chill.
Yeah.
Which one is when you cut the lyrics entirely at the end of Michael in the Bathroom, because he just is so emotional that he can't get the words out. And yet the chorus has repeated so many times that the audience is singing along in their heads, and they're realizing by hearing their own inner voice saying, I'm just Michael in the bathroom, they're like, oh shit, I'm Michael in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And he's not as alone as he is, I also have known that aloneness.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that would be so obvious if the lyrics were there.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you'd be an observer instead of a participant.
Yeah.
And then my other favorite is how we get used to the idea that Christine Canigula is not going to rhyme.
Yeah.
Because she's not like other girls. She's
Right.
not predictable. The script says, like, she works by her own rules, and then she's like, she for a couple of very pivotal moments,
Mm-hmm.
she does not say the word that you are expecting her to say.
Correct.
In the rhyme. And so, again, I'm assuming people know the show and that at this point we're not too worried about spoilers.
They know, yeah.
But
it's
at the
okay.
end of the show, she says something in a perfect AB rhyme scheme, and that's the shock.
Yeah.
Because she suddenly is like all the other girls, and we don't like that. It feels uncomfortable, which really puts us in the mindset of Jeremy when he's like, that's not Christine.
Yeah. Right. Something is off about this.
So
because it's too perfect.
I can tell how much you work on those lyrics,
Yeah.
I also think that, I remember the first time I heard I Love Play Rehearsal.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, is the lyric really I love play rehearsal because it is fun? Like, really? And then I listened to it, and then as it went, I was like, that's not the most profound thought anyone's ever had, right? And then I continued to listen to it and got further into the song and was like, yeah, I really relate to this. Like, my heart was all, bzz, when I would go to play rehearsal too. And then I think it was like on my third listen that something just exploded inside me. And I was like, oh, it's not supposed to be complex. It's like how a graphic novel or comic book can be high art if you look at it the right way.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be the same as a Cezanne. You're not,
Right. Right.
It's just a different art form, and they can both hang in the same museum and both be just as worthy of the accolades, but you're not supposed to be looking at them like they were meant to be the same thing.
Right. It's just it's just written in a different language. That's
Right.
and that's the thing that as much as I sort of, whenever I sort of, get into sort of talking about my work in these different shows, I invariably say that sentence. That's the language that this show is written in. Be More Chill is written in the language of young, fired up, blunt people who lead with the bluntest, simplest idea, and then figure out what that idea means. Then they say something and then they think about what they just said. It's like that's how these young people are communicating, which I think is kind of true to life. And so I love play rehearsal. That's the idea that it is just these very sort of simple, kind of redundant ideas, because I think that's the first thing that's what she thinks of. It's
you
like,
don't have to wax poetic about something to really care, to express that you
right,
care about it.
Right. And I think that there's beauty in that. It's like, it's like when you ask a little kid, which one of these is your favorite? Oh, my favorite character is Mickey Mouse. Why is he your favorite? Well, he's my favorite because he's my favorite. It's just this sort of like this idea of it's just so simple. Like I would hope that sort of like the experience you had, that when someone first listens to that, it's like that's the dumbest thing I ever heard, and then you think about it and you sort of get inside this character. Why did she say that? Why what does that mean to her? And my hope is that then I give you enough sort of nutrition surrounding the character and inside the rest of the song that you realize, oh, there's a lot more going on here than just what meets the eye.
It's like pop art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It totally is like the
Yeah.
pop art of Broadway musicals.
I love that. I wish that we could put that on a marquee somewhere.
I mean, you'll be able to somewhere. I've never been a pull quote before.
Really?
I've been in digital. Like, I've been quoted. My tweets have been quoted in people's digital ads, but never on a marquee.
We're gonna change that. Just somebody needs to get me a marquee and some spray paint.
Well, I mean, we could go up to the Lyceum right now.
I
and
guess
just
we
add it.
could. I think I'd prefer to do it at another theater.
The thing is, I do have. This is a comment on the musical, not on the production, and I am positive, 100% positive, that Be More Chill will continue to have productions.
Yeah.
And my quote will apply to all of them because it's
Yes.
about your writing.
Thank you.
So
Thank
go
you,
ahead
my
and
friend.
Put it in the permanent on the permanent record.
All right.
Let's talk about some of your other work.
Yeah.
So I, of course, have seen Broadway Bounty Hunter
Yep.
twice,
Thank
starring
you.
the marvelous Annie Golden.
Yep.
People are still going to have some time to go and see that. August 18th is the final curtain.
Yes.
This, by the way, if people are listening live right now, which you can do to Laura Heywood interviews, they can call in and ask Joe a question. 844-TALK-DNR, which is
cool.
844-825-5367. This is one of the major benefits of being a patron of the DNR Studios, which you can join at dnrstudios.com/Laura. It's just a mere $6.95 a month, and you get all my interviews live and a week early.
That's incredible. And
so
you get to call and
you
yell
call
at me.
and talk to people. You can tell Joe, why did you change that part of Pitiful Children that
Yep.
I insisted you
Oh,
not
God.
change?
Yeah.
I assume, though, that most people are listening to the free version of
Mm-hmm.
this because from an economic standpoint, why would you listen to it? Why would you pay for something that you're eventually going to get for free?
Yep.
One of the reasons is you can call in. Another reason is that it helps me make this thing, which I finance myself and is not easy. So if anyone is so inspired. But what I'm saying is that while we are talking here, Be More Chill still has a few more performances. By the time the free episode is out, Be More Chill will be sadly heartbreakingly departed from Broadway. But we'll celebrate the fact that it was.
Yes.
But the free episode will be available while there are still performances left of Broadway Bounty Hunter, so we can encourage everybody to go to the Greenwich House Theater and see it.
August 18th, swarm the Greenwich House. I want to
Yeah.
see people being thrown out of the theater because so many people are trying to go see this new original musical playing downtown where musicals used to play.
And that cast is incredible. I mean,
They're amazing.
I hear a lot about Annie, and of course, she is at the heart of this musical. It's about her. It's about a character named Annie Golden.
Yep.
In fact, she did one of my favorite interviews ever here. She
Yeah.
spent an hour with me, and we just had a blast. But the ensemble is a truly diverse, multi-talented, acrobatic, creative, hilarious, like gorgeously chosen, incredibly sung. Like just I have nothing but just superlatives for all of them.
Yeah, they're just they're incredible. That's the only word. You know, it's a combination of people who have, you know, been in 10 million Broadway shows and, you know, been nominated for 20 awards, like, you know, Brad Oscar and the Alan Greens of the world, and you know, and people like Christina Sajou from American Idiot and Jared Joseph
Or
and
Emily Borromeo, who's like a TV star.
Yes, yeah,
and
like,
my friend.
yeah, like,
she's so good.
They're just all so amazing. They're all so peculiar. They are all incredible singers, incredible actors, incredible dancers, and they're also like the ensemble of this musical. You know, you're sort of seeing these incredible performers functioning as a unit, and, you know, like moving the sets and doing crazy costume changes that you would never see, you know, people like this doing normally. And so I think it's a really exciting thing. I'm just so proud of it, and I'm so proud of the artists that we assembled, and yeah, I wish that we could run for years and years and years, but alas.
Is it going to be recorded?
That's the hope. I'm trying so hard. We just have to make an album. Hopefully somebody will come through and give us money to make that album. It's just money, you know, it's just cash.
So people should go to joeiconis.com and like tell you if they have a couple $1 million for you.
If anyone has a couple $1 million for me, I'm totally reachable. MrJoeIconis.com. Hit me up on my socials, DMs.
You can even call us right now, 844-825-5367.
This would be the if this would be the perfect time. If there's anyone
If
listening.
anybody calls in while we're live and offers you a couple $1 million, can you just make sure that you spend $6.95 a month of that to subscribe to Laura Heywood interviews?
That's asking a lot, but I'll consult with my business manager
Okay,
about
that
it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to do a recording. I mean, we just will. I'm just going to figure out a way to make it happen.
Good.
But yeah, I'm so proud of the show, and it's been really cool too, seeing, you know, audiences go crazy for this thing that they have no idea what the hell it is. You know, it's you know, Be More Chill. You know, obviously a lot of people came to it or have been coming to it because they know the music so well, and because you know they have a level of familiarity. But, you know, Bounty Hunter, there's no cast recording. It's not based on anything. People walk into that theater truly not knowing what the show is, which I think is pretty rare these days.
It
you know,
totally is.
it's very unusual to walk into a theater to see a new musical and, you know, not have a concept album or a cast album or a movie or whatever to sort of go by. And so it's been fun, like, seeing people be delighted by that and be delighted by this, kind of insane story that, much like Be More Chill, really is a celebration of people who feel marginalized by society.
So in addition to the 2 works that are currently running in New York,
Mm-hmm.
you've got Love and Hate Nation coming up, going back home to Two River Theater where Be More Chill started. And I just want to take this opportunity to plug an event you and I are doing together.
Yeah, we are.
On October 20th
Mm-hmm.
at the Guggenheim Museum, the very fancy Guggenheim. We're going to be sitting down, you and me, and I don't know who else from the Love and Hate Nation team, to talk about the works in process of this new musical as part of Guggenheim's Works and Process series. So Guggenheim.org is the website where you can get tickets to see Joe and me in person together.
We're very adorable.
Totally. And the more people on that stage, the more adorable it gets.
Yes.
We are erudite. That's my latest word of if I wanted to be described by anyone.
It's really good.
Thanks. You can use it.
I will. It's going on the marquee, too.
Love and Hate Nation, I know, is set in a juvenile hall in the 1960s, and it's about, from what I understand, 2 young women who fall in love.
Yeah.
What else do we need to know?
You need to know that it's, so it is at its center a romance between these 2 young women, one of whom is a young black woman who's 16 years old, whose name is Susanna Sun. And the other of whom is a white gal named Sheila Nail. And it's about them, and it's about all of the other young women in this juvie hall. And it's about how they kind of learn how to be the revolutionaries of tomorrow. It's about these people who are living at this time just before there was sort of this... it's 1962, so it's just before all of these huge changes started happening in America, and America was sort of thrown into upheaval. And the idea is that it's sort of like the last days of the 50s. It's the last days, before there was any sign that a revolution was coming, and it's kind of watching these young people who are closed off from society at large sort of start their own revolution and learn how to rebel against the forces that are holding them down.
Have you cast the 2 leading roles yet?
Yeah, we have.
Has it been announced?
Not announced.
Oh.
Yeah. Soon.
How can I phrase this in a way that won't make it spoilery but might still get me an answer?
Uh-huh.
Is it anyone you think that I will recognize?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people.
I know. No, our cast is pretty insane. It's a cool combo of people. Like most of my stuff, it's like a combo of people who have, some people who have done my stuff before, some people who've never ever done it, who I met through auditions, who I was just like, who is this person? And then some other sort of randos who
randos.
I know. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. As always, it's a cool cast of people who, if you look at them in a lineup, you'd be like, what the hell is this? Is this, this isn't a musical, is it? And so, yeah, I'm really, really excited about it. And the music is, it's all inspired by 1960s girl group stuff. It's like the Crystals and the Ronettes.
Inspired by, but not pulled from. It's not a
correct.
jukebox musical.
Not
Obviously,
a jukebox.
If you're composing it.
Correct. Not a jukebox musical. It's inspired by. So it's sort of written in the style of those songs, but kind of filtered through like a 90s riot girl aesthetic. So it has this kind of punky.
That's my era.
Thing. Yeah. No, I mean likewise. And I was really inspired too by the riot girl zines, of that time, and the sort of repurposing of images of American femininity from the 1950s and 1960s as sort of punk manifesto material,
like pinup girl type of.
Yeah.
Do you know Suicide Girls?
Yeah.
I'm not crazy about their name, but I love their aesthetic. It's basically like these punk rock throwback Betty Page with piercings.
Yeah. Totally. It's that idea, but also, in the sort of riot girl culture, there was just so much imagery of the kind of like Betty Crocker, sort of classic 50s housewife, fractured in some way, and so that very much is the kind of spirit of the show. It's like taking these sort of icons of Americana and what a woman was supposed to be in the 1950s and what young women were sort of taught to be, and kind of burning that down.
So it's easy for me to, I think, especially because you've been working with Annie Golden, for me to make an Orange is the New Black connection.
Yeah.
And to be like, oh, it's this women in prison story. Did you take anything from that show? Was there any, other than the fact that it's women in prison?
Yeah, I think that I love Orange is the New Black, obviously. I wasn't particularly inspired by that per se. I think my initial inspirations went a little bit farther back. I really love, obviously, I love film a lot, and so I'm really inspired by different types of movies, and I really love, sort of exploitation grindhouse cinema, sort of, trashy movies of the 50s and 60s and 70s that, played in, crappy theaters and drive-ins and things like that.
You can definitely see that in Broadway Bounty Hunter.
Definitely. Broadway Bounty Hunter is very much a celebration of that sort of, filmmaking. And so my, one of the initial inspirations for Love and Hate Nation came from, like, for lack of a better term, bad girl movies of the 50s and 60s, like girl gang movies.
I don't think I ever saw any of those. I rarely watch movies because I'm at the theater too often.
I got you. But there was like a sort of subset genre of film that focused on women who were in prison, or women who went to reform schools, juvie halls, who were thrown in. Usually it had something to do with their boyfriends, like their boyfriends like killed a guy, and then she was in the car, and then and she was a bad girl for being with him, so she gets thrown in juvie hall, and then it's like about her rebelling in some way, or turn it into like some crime boss or something. And so I was sort of inspired by that. There's this great movie called Switchblade Sisters that I really love a lot. That is a movie that all of those movies are like definitely problematic in certain ways by today's standards. But what I think they did so well was that they took these actresses who in the other like sort of the other sort of like genre films of the time, like the horror, the biker movies, whatever, like all of these actresses who always had to be like the girlfriend or be the victim, it turned them into the center of their own story, and it just let them be badass, and it let them be the ones like beating up the guys instead of the other way around. And so it was just a vibe that I dug a lot, and just I really wanted to sort of musicalize this idea of of a sort of motley crew of badass chicks wreaking havoc through the streets. And so that was like sort of one kernel, and then that developed into something that is sort of far beyond that now. But that's where like the initial impulse came from. And also the show is in the same way that I think like Be More Chill touches on really heavy issues through the lens of genre and through the lens of sort of a wacky sci-fi comedy, Love and Hate Nation definitely is doing that as well, and it's pretty political, and it talks about a lot of stuff that's really like squarely going on in America today, and it does it sort of through the lens of the story of young women in the 60s, but it's pretty much about America in 2019. And in a way that I think is like maybe a little bit more on the surface than some other stuff that I've done.
Well, I can't wait to see it. And I actually was surprised to learn how close Two River Theater is to New York City. I'm actually already planning a trip. And I was like, okay, where am I going to stay? And how much is it going to cost me to get there? And it was like, oh, no, you can like take a train there in the same amount of time it takes me to take the subway to Coney Island, which I do all the time. It's like I can go there and back on the same day from New York City.
Correct. It is so preposterously easy to get there.
It just I didn't go see Be More Chill there because it seemed so far away, and now of course I'm kicking myself for that. It
was a huge mistake on your part. When Be More Chill was playing there,
I know.
I was obsessed with getting the theater to make a graphic that really like explained how close it was, and they did. The amazing Alicia Yervis, who did graphic design for the theater and now has her own incredible graphic design firm, she made me this graphic that was just like, we promise you this theater is like an hour and change away from New York City. It's the same as a long subway ride to Brooklyn. It's like, which it is, like truly. Yeah. And it's so close, so easy to get to.
Put that graphic everywhere. I mean, I guess as soon as you're ready to start promoting.
Yeah, for this go around, that graphic is going to be like out of control.
Good.
It's gonna be even better than it was 4 years ago.
Send it to me because I'll repost it everywhere. I have two more things that I want to talk to you about. One is I close out every show by promoting a good cause that's important to the heart of my guest. I firmly believe that there is no reason to have a public platform if you're not using it to make the world a better place. So we are going to save a couple of minutes to talk about music for autism.
Yeah.
Before we do that, and we have about 7 minutes left total, I want to know, like, really, truly, friend to friend, how are you doing? How are you feeling 5 days? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 days before Be More Chill finishes its Broadway run, 11 days before Broadway Bounty Hunter ends its run, with 2 shows on the horizon. We talked about Love and Hate Nation. You also have a Hunter S. Thompson project that's going to be on the West Coast.
Yep.
Details of that will be announced.
Yeah.
But you've got some sad stuff going on. You've got some exciting stuff going on.
Yeah.
How are you? How is Joe Iconis?
I'm doing all right. We'll say all right. It's like, as you said, there's so much great stuff going on. I'm so grateful for it. And there's a lot of, there's just a lot of like bummer stuff going on too. And so it's funny. I am so thrilled that we were able to get Be More Chill to Broadway. Like, look, it is an absolute miracle that we were able to do this show on Broadway for 10 million reasons. And the journey of the show has honestly surprised me every step of the way. And I could not be, more grateful and more proud of what we've done and of the, the lives that we've touched and the people who I've gotten the chance to meet because of this show being on Broadway. And having said that, I wish that it was running for longer. It's the thing of like, I'm as happy as I am that we opened. It's like a lot of shows open and they stay open. And so I want to be one of those shows, and we didn't get that. And it's, I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I think it sucks. I think that we deserve to be open for longer than we're going to be open for, but that's just the reality of the business, and it was sort of the hand that we were dealt. And there's only so many things you can that you can overcome, but we definitely like tried our hardest, and I'm really proud of it. And so it's a lot of conflicting emotions, and I feel the same with Bounty Hunter. It's the fact that we were able to get this musical that is centered on a woman in her 60s and features a cast exclusively of people of color, and is produced by 2 women, and is directed by and choreographed by women. It's hard to get shows like that on, especially when they're not based on anything, and especially when none of the people who I just mentioned are Hugh Jackman, and the fact that we were able to do it, and it was not easy, it was very, very difficult, is definitely a miracle. But again, I think that we deserve to be around for longer than we're going to end up being around for. So it's just a weird time, and I'm also like, I'm working on 10 million other things, the stuff that you mentioned and other stuff. And so it's just funny because I love this art form so much. I love musical theater. I love what I do. I love the people I do it with. I've been working in this business for 12, 13 years. And I passionately believe in what I'm doing, and what the people around me are doing is worthy. I don't think that we're like, breaking new ground, but I think that we're doing good work and that we deserve to be around. And it's just hard sometimes to like launch into new stuff thinking like, okay, am I just setting myself up to, work on this musical for 6 years to have it be like impossibly hard, have the thing, open on Broadway and be received in a strange way and then close, which and of course I'm going to keep doing it. And of course it's not, it's not that dire, but it is, just to be totally honest, that is when that's like the place that I'm in. But I've kind of been in this place every time I've sort of started a new show, and I just keep going because I really do believe that there's worth in it. And seeing the people whose whose lives we're all touching with these shows, with Be More Chill and with Broadway Bounty Hunter, it makes me feel like, okay, we're not crazy. This is a real thing, and we're doing some good. And even if it's not on the grand scale that we all hoped it would be, it's still pretty badass what we're doing.
If you, in 1 minute, could sum up a message you want to send to the Be More Chill fans, what would you say to them?
Oh yeah, easy. Thank you. Thank you for literally changing my life. I worked my entire career to try to get a show that I care about to Broadway, and it 100% could never happen, and it only happened with Be More Chill because the fans embraced the show, like, period. So thank you. I owe you everything that I have going on right now, and thank you for being so articulate and open and passionate and honest and telling me what my work means to you, and telling me what the work of all of the artists that I surround myself with means to you, and for being brave. The fans are like the bravest fans, and they refuse to let anyone get them down or trash talk our show. I like
love
it.
That.
Yeah, they've got our backs.
I also love that when I asked you to choose a charity that we could spend a couple minutes focusing on, you chose one that is about the intersection of outsiders and the arts.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about Music for Autism.
Music for Autism is a very incredible organization, and they their main focus is creating these live performances from all different types of music and performance. Right, so you have theater and jazz and comedy and classical for autism friendly. They're autism friendly performances, right? And so families can bring kids, relatives, whoever who are dealing with autism, and feel free to enjoy the performance without having to worry about making too much noise, or without having to worry about there being unexpected surprises. And it's really just about having live performances in a space that feels safe for everyone in the room.
Well, that's one of the things that I like the best about it, that I was the most impressed in doing some research, is that it's not just for people with autism, but it is equally enjoyable for people on the spectrum and people who are not on the spectrum.
Oh yeah.
So you don't have to just take your one autistic kid to this, and
right.
your other kids are going to be bored, or
right.
It's truly inclusive. And you don't have to be on the spectrum to have the experience.
Yeah, there's no element that's like you are different because you have this thing, and this concert is for you. It's just like, oh, here's a concert where if you happen to be dealing with this, you can feel safe to just be here and make noise and get excited, and it's just such a great environment. And I've had so many people who I know have come to the concerts, and not even just kids, adults who are like, oh, that was an awesome show. It's so I really love them. Music for Autism, they're good peeps.
Well, I am going to make a donation to them in your honor today.
Oh, cool.
And I'm encouraging
Thanks.
Everyone else who's listening to do the same. The website is musicforautism.org. Musicforautism.org. We are up against the clock, Joe Iconis. I adore you. Thank you so much. You've changed my life, and I could wax poetic about it, but we're out of time, so I'm just going to continue to support and be happy to be part of the extended family.
Of course, and thank you for that support. You've been so amazing to me and my show, and hopefully it's